Welcome back, everybody. Look at what I can do now. Whoa. Check that out. So today, I jacked up the car a little bit higher, gained about 6 inches here. Used, I imagine these are maybe like furniture dollies. But they came from Harbor Freight. They were like $4 each, and they hold 1,000 pounds each, which of course is plenty of weight, plenty of weight rating for this car. So now I can move the car around. I can get underneath it a little bit better, which is what I plan to do tonight. We're going to work on getting started on the underbelly of the car this evening. All right, next up this evening is the fuel tank. So we're going to give this a shot tonight. I am told by the service manual that we've got a nut here that undoes this strap, and then there's a nut right there as well, up there, and that's really it in terms of what's holding it up. And then there's there's some hoses. There's a, I think it's the fuel level sensor is in here. I need to disconnect that. So I've got a few little different things to try to get off. Everything is super rusty, so I expect it to be a complete nightmare. Oh, I do need to drain the fuel tank. I don't know if there's anything in it or not, but I'm about to find out. And yeah, we'll try to get this fuel tank out. There we go. There was fuel. And it doesn't actually look horrible. All right. Well, watch me work smarter, not harder. We have, there's that last nut. We've graduated to, dun dun dun, power tools. So I've had these this entire time, and you know, like an idiot, I've just been trying to do everything super hard. But you know, it's not to say this is gonna come off very easy. The last one sure did. Here we go. Woohoo! There we go. Look at that. That's just like a work of art. All right, power tools. Well, I've come to what I think is a fairly a disturbing conclusion here. I think this car has been torn down to the frame before. Maybe repainted at some point in time. I mean, obviously we know that the engine is not original, but I'm looking at these fuel lines even on the fuel tank, and these are not original. These are just, you know, AutoZone hose clamps basically. So those are standard size, you know, 5/16, 3/16, that kind of thing. The original clamps look like that. So that's an original clamp right there. But the fact that these are new, or not new, but not original, I don't think that's an original hose either. Tells me that this might have been stripped down before. See, there's an original clamp too, another example of one. But these guys right here, these are not original. So, I mean, if that's truly the case, then gosh, what a shame that somebody took the time and effort to tear this thing down once before, and you know, it was allowed to, you know, get to this condition. Just disturbing. So just motivates me that much more to resurrect this beast, try to get her back to life. I don't know that I'll get her to a state of better than new, you know, like a My Mechanics or Mr. Patina or some of these other, you know, restoration channels. But I think it's going to be probably about as good as it's been ever in its life by the time I'm done with it. So that makes me feel good inside. But yeah, gosh, what a, you know, when I see stuff like this, you know, that means that at a minimum this fuel cell has come out before, and there's not much reason for a fuel cell to come out unless you were tearing down a car to rebuild it. So, and I know it's been painted before. I'm 90% sure that some of this paint that's inside of here is not the factory original. So gosh, you know, what a shame that somebody took the time and effort to tear this thing all the way down, repaint it, only to have it end up looking like this again. Anyway, just an observation I made. But anyway, coming up on these, gonna just disconnect. There's basically 1, 2, 3 up in there that you can't see. And then there's one around the back side. Hose that needs to come off, and then this tank will just drop right out. Oh, and then of course the fuel filler hose itself. Fuel tank out. There's the underside of the spare tire tub, and now I've got access to, looks like another fuel filter. Are there 2 on this car? Yeah, and now we can, I think I actually have to deal with the muffler and tailpipe before I can tackle the rear differential here, but I'm gonna take a little survey and see what makes the most sense to tackle at this point. But fuel cell out really didn't take that long. Wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. Okay, here's what we're going to tackle next. We are going to try to get the rear differential out of, well, not the rear differential, the entire rear suspension out. I do need to remove the exhaust. I think I'm just going to take my Sawzall and cut that out. And then from here, there's really not much to take this out. You know, famous last words, right? Got a bolt or nut here, and then the same one over on the other side, right where my finger's pointing. And then you also have these bolts right here, right there. There's 2 of them, one on each side. Can't get my camera around quite there, but yeah, a couple of those. And then this is like a bracket right here, this bar. So it's really 1, 2 of those, and then there's 2 more just like it on the other side. And then there's that nut and this nut. And other than, you know, disconnecting brake lines, oops, sorry about all that bright light there, but other than connecting or disconnecting the brake lines on each side, and the, oh gosh, what was I going to say? The other piece that needs to come off. Then the strut towers themselves, and you get to those on the upside, on the you know, the inside of the car. There's three nuts up there, and then this. So those 3 nuts on the other side. This one, the counterpart to that one, and then 2 here and 2 on the other side. In theory, this entire rear suspension should just drop right out. We'll put a jack underneath the rear differential right there to support it. But first step is Sawzall this exhaust pipe out here. I'm gonna replace the exhaust entirely, so I don't really care about trying to preserve that. But yep, be cutting that out. So here we go. Okay, it is moment of truth time. I think I have everything disconnected to pull this entire rear suspension out. Oh, actually, I just remembered I need to take these off here. These are the strut tower bolts. There's 3 of them, or nuts rather. Those should come off pretty easily. And then I can lower this jack, and the suspension should drop down, and I should be able to pull this jack backwards and pull the suspension right out from underneath the car. I did cut out the exhaust. So I just used the Sawzall to cut that portion of the exhaust out. And that's where we're at. But I think I got them all. I had a couple of difficult moments, but overall, I think we got it. So let me get these strut tower nuts pulled off, and then I'll set up the tripod and we'll see if I can actually accomplish pulling the rear end out of the car. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, what we are about to see here is take 2 of dropping the rear suspension. Unfortunately, what you see happening here is that the jack lowers, but the suspension does not. That's clearly not what the expected outcome was here. You're going to see me trying some various things, doing some troubleshooting, shaking the car around. And I have also discovered that I have made a logistical mistake. So I'm going to kind of fast forward through some stuff here and get to that mistake, and we'll see what was, well, at least one of the things that was holding me back from getting the rear suspension dropped at this point. So what you're going to see me do here is go grab a breaker bar and try to force the rear end to drop down. Was unsuccessful in that effort as well. And then coming up here in just a few seconds is my realization of the pretty big logistical error that I had made. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to disconnect the drive shaft. That's kind of important. Well, we'll be back after that. I was unable to get the drive shaft loose, but I remembered that it can just pull out of the transmission. So if I was going to disconnect the drive shaft from the differential, I should have done that way before I disassembled all the bolts holding the suspension up. But thankfully I was able to recover from that. The other issue was I ran into 4 more nuts that needed to come loose. There was a bracket that was keeping the whole assembly from dropping down, so that's done, and now it's all dropped down, and so I should be able to, well, I'm gonna have to do some manipulation because the struts are in the way, but we're gonna give it a shot here. Once again, I'm going to speed up the video a little bit. You're going to see me struggling quite a bit to get this rear end out. I ultimately ended up grabbing a couple of toe straps that I have, hooking them to the coil springs, and just yanking with all my might to pull the rear suspension out. As you can see, I was able to get the rear suspension actually lowered to the ground, but the drive shaft was, I guess, kind of sticking in place just because of the angle of the drive shaft. Now that the suspension is lowered to the ground, there's a pretty good angle from the rear suspension going up to the transmission, and I think that was preventing that yoke from coming loose. I initially tried to pull the car or pull the suspension out from under the car, but it ended up bringing the car with it because I now have it on the wheels, as I showed you earlier. So I chalked those wheels so the car wouldn't move, and then went back to tugging
and was finally able to drag the entire rear suspension out from underneath the car and succeed in my ultimate goal. But you'll see me struggling here for quite a bit as I get to the point where I can actually pull the rear suspension out.
Or not, but let's see. There it is. Took a lot. A lot more than I expected. But there it is. The entire rear suspension. So now we have a big hole underneath the car. There, we're getting there. My goodness. Well, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. Been at this for about 5 hours. I think it's time to call it a day. Thanks for tuning in.